When you hear about vaccinating our children, what is your opinion? A Pew Research Center survey found that 83% of us think vaccines are safe for children for diseases such as measles, mumps, and rubella. But should this be a family's personal choice or a government requirement? Let's take a look at our next debaters and find out who's right. Janie Oyakawa is an occupational therapist who runs the group Crunchy Skeptics for holistic-minded parents who are pro-vaccine. She was a minor contributor to the book, The Science of Mom, a research-based guide to your baby's first year. Julia Burl is an anti-vaccination activist. Her son Baxter was hospitalized autistic shortly after being vaccinated as a young child and then was diagnosed as autistic. Baxter stopped displaying autism 3 years later, and she became the founding coordinator for the Los Angeles chapter of Talk About Curing Autism. She is also a parent founder of Generation Rescue, a nonprofit group focused on funding and researching the causes and medical recovery options for autism.
This is a bottle of thimerosal, and it has, you can see, and it says very toxic. If you were to open that in this room, we would have to clear the room, call hazmat. That's how toxic it is, and it was being injected into my son.
Like an antacid has almost 600 times the amount of aluminum that one vaccine does. And people aren't out there going, antacids are the devil. They're not doing that because a lot of times they don't realize it's just a lot of catchphrases that scare people.
That science is falsified. That science is manipulated. That science, again, science. Your science is paid for by Big Pharma.
To me, if it was a conspiracy to harm people, this would literally be one of the biggest conspiracies ever to exist. And I started to think, that doesn't really make much sense. I really don't think that these scientists are dedicating their education and their life to harm children.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with another powerful debate.
Welcome to Truth Trial. My name is Marcus Lloyd, and this is the show where we put important issues of the day on trial so you can decide the truth. You've heard of the Court of Public Opinion? Well, this is it. Our question tonight, are Americans' fears about vaccinations for children justified? Joining us tonight is anti-vaccination activist Julia Burley, who was the founding coordinator of the Greater Los Angeles chapter of Talk About Curing Autism. And alongside her is Janie Oyakawa, an occupational therapist who runs the group Crunchy Skeptics for holistic-minded parents who are pro-vaccine. So Janie, you get to go first. Okay. You have 2 minutes for opening remarks. Okay. Then when you're finished, Julia, you will have 2 minutes of opening remarks. Then once that's finished, you guys will be able to go into a 5-minute period where you can discuss and talk and debate the issue without me. You guys clear?
Yep. Okay.
Good, wonderful. Well, this is Truth Trial, and this is the beginning of our debate.
So boosting the immune system is a really popular idea these days. From a convenience store to the smoothie shop, you can get all different types of products to boost your immune system. And these products don't actually really work that well. What does work and what does boost your immune system is vaccines. Vaccines protect you, your child, against serious diseases by stimulating the nervous system to create antibodies. Vaccines protect all of us. Herd immunity is real. Each vaccinated person reduces the chances for that disease to spread. We are on the cusp of global eradication for polio. Smallpox, one of the world's most devastating diseases, was eradicated due to vaccines. The last case of natural occurring smallpox was in 1977 when I was born. Measles has almost 100% infection rate. 9 out of 10 people who are not immune will contract measles if they are exposed. And being touched is not even necessary because measles is airborne. One can never forget the heartbreaking sound of a newborn gasping and choking for air in the throes of a pertussis episode. Pertussis right now is one of the leading causes of vaccine-preventable death worldwide. I understand that people are afraid, but I think an overall lack of scientific literacy is to blame for that. The evidence is out there. It's available to us all. You can access this evidence. You can learn about what goes into the rigorous trials to prove that vaccines are safe. So we know that the vaccines are safe, but these diseases are not safe. These diseases cause pain, the diseases cause disability, and most of all, these diseases cause death. Vaccines is a risk-benefit decision, and the risks are far lower than the risk of these diseases. The benefit is there. Vaccinate.
I find it mystifying that people can claim that vaccines are safe and effective. To date, there has never been a double-blind placebo study of vaccines. Not one, never. There has never been a vaccinated versus non-vaccinated study, ever. Our entire combination of vaccines that we receive and we give our children has never been studied in combination, ever, ever. We recommend shots to pregnant women all the time, and the CDC will say safe and effective. Ethically, you cannot test vaccines on pregnant women. So how are they just stating that it is safe and effective? Personally, I've been deeply affected by vaccine injury. 17 years ago, I gave birth to my first son, and he was hospitalized almost every single time we gave him a vaccine within hours. Within hours. He subsequently was diagnosed with vaccine-induced autism, and we treated him for that injury. People don't know the ingredients in vaccines. There's aluminum, there's mercury, there's polysorbate 80. There was an independent study recently that found glyphosate in there. There are very toxic, nefarious ingredients in vaccines, and people don't even know this. I researched cribs and car seats when I was a pregnant mom. I didn't research vaccines. I just blindly trusted. Whatever my doctor said, and I did it. Most anti-vaccine people were at once pro-vaccine until we suffered serious, serious repercussions. So I struggle and I work very hard for vaccine safety and to make sure that people are well informed before they go ahead and just blindly vaccinate without information.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
You're watching Truth Trial.
So my question that I have first off is, when I take my children to get vaccinated, there's a very good process set up before that there's no contraindications for any of the vaccines they're going to receive. So after your son had the first episode, he would have been contraindicated for further vaccinations. So why were the medical professionals not doing that?
I absolutely requested to delay vaccines, and I was told no, that I could not do that. I don't know what to tell you. They deemed acute pyelonephritis not problematic enough to not further vaccinate. And it is very rare that they will point out contraindications. You have a good pediatrician if they're talking about that.
Well, we've vaccinated at different places, including the health department, and they always go through that. I guess
No,
I
they
don't
don't.
like the connotation that doctors and scientists and nurses and these people that are working so hard and putting their education and life's work into this, do you think they're purposely trying to hurt children?
No, nobody is purposefully trying to hurt children. But the education is not out there. And I do firmly believe that pharma is manipulating science. Currently, there are 2 whistleblowers for the MMR alone, once with mumps efficacy, that the science fraudulently manipulated the efficacy of the mumps vaccine, and the CDC whistleblower, Dr. William Thompson, came forward with tens of thousands of documents how they manipulated a study and they downplayed a link between autism and the MMR.
Both of those have been disproven.
No,
Their
they have not.
statistics were wrong.
That is
Same as
absolutely
earlier
not
when
true.
you said there were no double-blind
There's
placebo.
never been. There's always an it's not
Anyone
saline.
watching can Google that and have studies
anyone
within 10
watching can
seconds.
Google that
Feel
and
free.
find
You
that
can
it
have
has
several.
never been-
I've in fact had my
It is
10-year-old
not
child.
saline. It is used against another vaccine. It is not saline. It is not a placebo.
No, that's actually just patently false. That's not
patently
true.
true.
And the other thing is that we have epidemiology that can study populations. We can easily compare groups of people that have been vaccinated and groups of people that have not been vaccinated by choice. Right now, we're able to compare clusters of anti-vaccine communities where diseases are
where,
spreading.
like the Amish community, where autism virtually does not exist at all. That's a perfectly good study.
Autism and vaccines has been repeatedly debunked.
Debunked
In fact,
by all your scientists that use manipulated
millions of
data.
dollars have been diverted from reputable other research to research something from a
So-
fraudulent doctor, and nothing has shown up in it. Even when you
We're
said
reading
your son-
totally different internets because.
Oh no, we are because
yours
I'm
is-
reading from scientists and you're reading from blogs and
And
National
you
Vaccine
know me, that is
Information
absolutely
Center.
categorically untrue.
You're sharing.
So Dr. William Thompson, the head
Millions of myths.
the head researcher on that study, came forward with all this documentation after the CDC threw it in the trash can that he
So
kept
you
on his
think
own
there's
private
good
time.
doctors that are just ignoring this conspiracy?
I think that Big Pharma
Because
is
of Big
controlling
Pharma.
a lot. Yes, I do.
Do you ever seen how little money is actually made from vaccines?
Do you know how
because
they
of how
get paid
expensive
kickback?
all of
Do you
these
know-
safety trials
then why
are?
can't you sue the vaccine manufacturer? Do you know you can't sue
Because
the
it would
vaccine-
halt vaccine production.
That would be fine.
So
with
we
me.
do have vaccine adverse reporting system.
Yeah, you do.
And anyone can report to that, and they
3.2
should.
billion we've paid out in adverse events. So, but vaccines are safe and effective.
Well, theirs is a reporting system so that they can keep
Which they are
abreast
legally
of any
required to
issues
do,
that come
and
out.
they refuse to report my son's vaccine injury.
So when you said your son was diagnosed with vaccine-induced autism, I actually have diagnosed children with autism, and there's no such thing. You don't say someone is vaccine. Correlation is not causation. Many things happen around the same time that children start exhibiting autistic symptoms, and it does not mean that those things happened because of the vaccine. It just doesn't. There could be, that's still being intensively studied.
And I wanted to point out too, you said herd immunity is a real thing. When was the
is.
last time you got a booster shot?
I did 2 years ago for my DTaP because I worked in a community with small children.
How many adults out there?
Okay, so
50% of the population is vaccinated. That's not the 95% that you're claiming herd immunity needs to have.
That
for it
doesn't
to work.
negate the science of herd immunity.
Yes, it does.
Herd immunity
Yes, it does. It
exists
absolutely,
when people get
unequivocally
vaccinated,
does.
the disease, and it's very simple. It's a concept that children
Disease
grasp.
went down when we got clean water and better sanitation.
It's like saying men don't like to use condoms, therefore condoms don't work. Just because some people don't get their boosters, that should. Please get your boosters, everyone.
Please don't.
It does mean, so do you think no one should vaccinate for anything?
Hi. You guys are having a good time up here.
Yes, wow.
Sorry that I could break that up, but we need to go to a break. And that's what we're going to do right now. But we will come back to hear closing arguments from this very interesting conversation. This is Truth Trial. Welcome back to Truth Trial. I'm Marcus Lloyd, and this is the part of the show where we continue on with our closing arguments. And we'll start with the coin flip winner. That, of course, is Janie. And you have 4 minutes to do your closing arguments. And then once we finish with that, we'll move over to you, Julia. Janie, your turn.
I don't want to be disparaging in my closing, but I really don't know how to sum up one of the biggest health successes ever in the history of all medicine. Since Edward Jenner created the smallpox vaccine in 1796, vaccines have been saving lives. I don't know how many millions of lives have been saved. It's estimated that just since 1994, vaccines have saved 732,000 children's lives. Are there risks? Yes, some, just like there are risks to you putting on your seatbelt or a flotation device. But the risks are far outweighed by the benefits. Think of the gratitude of the parents lining up in the 1950s to get their children vaccinated from polio. Many knew firsthand the disabilities of polio, from wheelchairs to iron lungs. I think that we are so far removed from the terrors of vaccine-preventable diseases that we can discount their efficacy. I teach my children ethical behavior by asking them, what would the world look like if everyone did what you do? If you stole, or if you took just grapes off the counter at the store and ate them, and then everybody started doing that. How would the world be different? So I kind of want to ask the same question in this situation. What if everyone did what you're doing? What if the whole world decided to deny the evidence of vaccine science? Are you ready for the consequences of that world? Are you ready for the amount of disease and disability that would return? For the sake of humanity, this generation and those to come, we need to prioritize science knowledge. We desperately need critical thinking taught well. We need to be able to evaluate situations as they happen and realize that we are not a control group ourselves, that even if difficult things happen to us, that doesn't mean that we hold the key to what is causing those difficult things. That these things are studied and evaluated in large groups. We need people who can decipher appropriate sources. Blogs is not where you go to learn about science. We need people that understand research and understand the life's work of researchers that are trying to make us a healthier, safer world. I can only think of what Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson says. Not enough of our society is trained in how to understand and interpret quantitative information. This activity is a centerpiece of science literacy, which we should all strive for. The future health, wealth, and security of our democracy depends on it. Until that is achieved, we are at risk of making under-informed decisions that affect ourselves, our communities, our country, and even our world. I want to share a brief story from a little girl named Bree, and this is on vaccinateyourfamily.org. She was contracted pertussis, and she was put on a ventilator, dialysis, tubes in her stomach, and then she had to have blood thinners for those machines, and it caused her to have bleeding in her brain. On March 6th, they called her parents to explain the gravity of the daughter's situation, and the family came to say their goodbyes. She lived for 30 minutes after being removed from the machines. She was 52 days old and just 7 days short of being able to receive her first pertussis vaccine. Getting vaccinated was what she couldn't quite get to. That's why we as a community need to get our vaccinations and our boosters, because people are depending on that for their safety. It's important for yourself and for everyone and our most vulnerable.
Thank you, Janie. And now, Julia, your 4 minutes.
Thanks. So the bottom line that I have, and the biggest concern I have, is medicine is not a one-size-fits-all. Not everyone can take the same vaccine and have the same reaction. If you were allergic to penicillin and you had an adverse reaction to penicillin, you should not take it again. And it's widely accepted that that's the way it is. There are, for the millions of lives that we claim have been saved, there are tens and hundreds of thousands of children that have been injured and killed from vaccines themselves. As I mentioned, the ingredients in these vaccines are hardly ever looked at. You are not given a package insert. On the package insert, they list adverse events such as autism, SIDS, encephalopathy, anaphylaxis. It's listed in the package insert of these vaccines. Is this a medical procedure that comes with serious risks? And when you talk about the science, I always want to use air quotes when we talk about the science. Just recently, the Harvard sugar study came out, where they admitted that they paid to take away take sugar away from being the nefarious health risks and put the blame on fats. Science has been manipulated for as long as there's been science. You can get any answer you want just by manipulating data. So you cannot blanketly say that these are safe and effective for all people. Once again, medicine is not a one-size-fits-all, and vaccines should not be treated as such. There are other concerns. Like when you get a live attenuated virus shot, such as the MMR, shingles, chickenpox, they shed for up to 3 weeks, thus making you're walking around shedding the actual disease you were just inoculated against. I don't understand how, if your child is vaccinated and you believe vaccines work, your child is protected. My unvaccinated child is not carrying some secret organism walking around infecting the universe. With the risks that come with vaccine, we're seeing a rise in chronic illness. Children under the age of 5 now, 1 in 7 has a chronic illness. 1 in 20 has a seizure disorder. We're seeing a massive rise in autoimmune disorders and anaphylaxis and a whole host of other issues. There are trade-offs when you have this medical procedure, and we should not be mandated to do this. It should be a parental choice. You should know what's in that package insert, you should know what it says, and you should make an informed choice for the well-being of your family. Anyone with a history of autoimmune disorders is at a much higher risk of having an adverse reaction to vaccines. That was not told to me. Both my husband and I have autoimmune on both sides of our family. So, again, I have been deeply personally affected by vaccine damage. My entire life, for 17 years, I have been researching and working with vaccine safety and trying to make it a better option, a safer option, so more people can take part safely. As it stands now, the industry is corrupt. The CDC is policing itself. Big Pharma is policing itself. And this has to stop. If we want to protect our children against infectious diseases, then there should be a much better way of policing this entire industry.
Thank you, Julia. Well, that's all that we have time for on this debate, so let's thank our debaters. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Julia, for coming and being part of this conversation. And now it's time for you at home to become a part of this conversation. And all you have to do is go to truthtrial.com or text the number on your screen, and then you can get into the conversation and vote for what you believe is the best argument. This is Truth Trial. I'm Marcus Lloyd, and we will see you next time.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Go to truthtrial.com or text the number on your screen to vote for the winner of the debate. You're watching Truth Trial.
I'm crunchy enough to understand that. I really do. And she's right. There are things that happen in science that shouldn't happen in science. But if you disparage science, what do you have left? Science is a self-correcting system. We know about the cover-up of the sugar studies because science eventually self-corrected that issue. I think what's misunderstood is that the wealth of knowledge on vaccines exceeds the CDC. It exceeds the FDA. It exceeds America. So to me, the flip side of what she's saying is that this is conspiracy-like. And if that's the case, that means every nation in the world is involved in this conspiracy. Even abominable governments for other reasons still support vaccinations. Every major university and science organization in the world supports vaccinations. And so to me, human beings love to talk, and those things eventually come out. Vaccines have been around for so long in so many places that if this was truly a conspiracy, I think we would know that by now.
I did not know at that time that there were no double-blind placebo studies. None. Never been done. Never been conducted. I didn't know that our vaccination schedule, which now has 72 shots up to the age of 18, they've never been studied in conjunction, and they've never been looked at. I didn't know that there's never been a vax versus non-vax study. I didn't know any of this. I just blindly trusted, and my son was hospitalized virtually every single time he got a shot. At 4 months of age, his head swelled up like a basketball. It was like this big, huge, and he was later diagnosed with encephalopathy. He then was subsequently diagnosed with autism, and because, like you said, he did lose that diagnosis because I treated him biomedically. I treated him for a vaccine injury. I did not just, do the traditional autism. But so I am very, very concerned about the lack of transparency as it currently stands with our government, the government agencies that oversee this, the pharmaceutical industry not being held accountable. Did you know you can't even sue? You can't sue the pharmaceutical industry. If your child dies from a vaccine, you cannot sue them. Wow. We have the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which has currently paid out $3.2 billion. But vaccines are safe and effective. Safe and effective. And I just, without transparency, we cannot say that vaccines are safe and effective.
So what I see a lot in the anti-vaccine movement is moving the goalpost. There's a constant moving of the goalpost. So there are metals used in vaccines, sometimes in the production, which leaves a small trace amount in the vaccine that the children receive. But these are metals that are occurring all the time. Aluminum is in the soil, it's in our foods. So there's a threshold of safety for those ingredients, and the ones that are in vaccines are such a minuscule amount from what would even be remotely being dangerous to someone. And they leave the body very quickly after the vaccine. And they all serve a very important purpose. It's not like, oh, they're just putting metals in vaccines because they obviously have a safer choice and they're just not using it. You have to look at what the purpose of them are. Formaldehyde in vaccines is used to kill the viruses that are being used. So you don't want to be putting, you want to make sure that process is correct, and that's the best for it. Aluminum is to keep bacteria out. Mercury is not used in vaccines anymore, but the type of mercury it is, it's ethyl mercury, not methyl mercury, so it's not like the mercury that's in fish, and that's oftentimes not understood. So for me, it was reading, oh, this isn't at all what I thought it was like, even though it's so easy to say, oh, it's dangerous, toxic metals. That's actually not the case.
Rate of childhood chronic illness has gone up exponentially with the rate that our vaccines, we've increased the number of vaccines. 1 in 7 now, children under the age of 5 has a chronic illness. 1 in 20 has a seizure disorder. The rates of autoimmune disorders are skyrocketing. Asthma, allergies, SIDS, we think is, they rule it as SIDS when, babies die hours after vaccination. That's just, even package inserts will list adverse events, and they list SIDS, they list autism, they list, on the actual insert itself, it says that. So this is not something to just blindly trust. It is there's not enough money in the world that would have me vaccinate my other 2 children. There's just not. Like I said, we paid the price. I would much rather my child get a case of measles than have a lifelong neurological disorder.
You're watching Truth Trial. That's all the time we have. Go to truthtrial.com or text the number on your screen to vote for the winner of the debate. Tune in next time for the results of the poll and for the next episode of Truth Trial. Got a great show idea for Truth Trial? We want your ideas. Submit your show ideas or tell us about your expertise on an important topic. We are on the lookout for credible, informed, and dynamic guests. Contact us now at www.truthtrialguestinfo.com. Stay tuned to see a preview of next week's episodes. Join us at www.truthtrial.com every week to examine high-impact issues that affect your life. Do you know the facts? The real facts? Watch extended versions of our previous and current debates. Get an in-depth understanding, with both sides presented, of issues that directly impact you. Watch these one-on-one interviews up close with our host. You can also watch full shows of Truth Trial on our website anytime and cast your vote for the winner.